Howdy. In an opinion piece today in the New York Times, Ross Douthat has an article in which he addresses what it is that the university students at Columbia in particular read in their introductory core courses. They're kind of the core reading materials that students historically have been expected to kind of read and have an understanding of as they proceed through the university system that form the backbone of our understanding of the nation and who we are as a society. And in the article, he highlights how, up until recently, much of the reading list has focused on many of the traditional readings, the people and the books and the topics that most of us who are over 50 probably remember reading and talking about and discussing, agreeing and disagreeing with as we went through school. But then he highlights how currently the new generation, over the last 75 years of material that's been selected for them, nearly 100 years of material that's been selected for them, they're reading essentially left or far left interpretations of society and history and why things are the way they are. And he ties this to the protests that we're seeing across the country today. Now, I will say that I think some concerns that are being raised in the context of today's protest are concerns that ought to be addressed. There are questions that we ought to have better answers for, both for ourselves as a nation and for ourselves as a nation at this point in world history. I think we have too many people who are leading from a 1950s to 1970s or 80s mindset, and not enough people who are in touch with the pulse of today's generation in a way that allows them to communicate many ideas that I agree with, but allows them to communicate in a way that today's generation understands. And that brings me to my main point is to ask myself and all of us, what is it that we are doing to facilitate communication with people that we disagree with about topics that we may in fact think are not only important but vitally important for understanding who we are as individuals and who we are as human beings in the context of not only this immediate moment, but in the context of world history, in the context of what the future holds, in the context of who we are in relation to the rest of reality, the material, the immaterial world, all of that combined. In other words, if we simply respond to ideas that we disagree with derision and shock that people can think such things, we're missing the point of developing a democratic society in which the free exchange of ideas is encouraged. We've lost sight, and I think that the far left and the radicals who are doing this on purpose have taken advantage of perhaps many of us who thought that if we simply exchange ideas, the right ideas will bubble to the surface. And I would suggest that many, it appears, particularly in the university system on the far left, took advantage of that over the last 40 or 50 years to install their view on the world without taking into consideration what a more traditional conservative view of the world is and how it came to be. And that's essentially what Ross Douthat's article, his opinion piece, what students read before they protest, what he is making in that opinion piece. And I think it raises questions that we ought to be asking and answering with respect to how we fund education, how we view ourselves as a nation on the world stage, how we are and are not handling the issues today in a way that is constructive without giving ground to ways that we think are destructive, even many of those ways being implemented in cities and school districts and regions of the country to the detriment of those cities, school districts, and regions in the country. So, with this opinion piece in the background, I'd encourage you to read it and just think about what it is that we can do to be more intentional in sharing with people who disagree with us, which is now perhaps two or three generations worth of people, as the far left liberal ideas took over the colleges and universities and the educational system when we weren't paying attention. What we can do to recapture that system and encourage the minds who have been captured by that system to think more clearly about life, the universe, and everything, but especially about the past, the history of the world and the history of the United States in which we find ourselves as we ourselves wrestle with what we ought to do going forward. Thank you all very much. Look forward to hearing what you have to say. Thank you very much for your time. I've got a couple other videos listed here if you'd like to take a look at those. And as I'd like to discuss issues related to politics, religion, society, and how in the world we're supposed to understand ourselves and life in the world. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Bye-bye.